There is a widespread assumption in education that if you take a standard curriculum, drop it onto a screen, and assign a login, you automatically get a functioning online class. But a physical room naturally provides dozens of subtle communication variables that we usually take for granted. Physical proximity, casual eye contact, and the collective ability for an instructor and students to simply read the room all vanish the second you move online. Without those natural cues, the environment turns into a digital vacuum. Left alone behind a keyboard, learners quickly begin to feel isolated, lose their focus, and detach from the material. You can see the behavioral consequences of this vacuum almost immediately. A student stops viewing a teacher's feedback as actual human communication and instead treats it entirely as a transactional grade, a number handed down from a machine. This isolation strips away the broader context of the coursework. If a student is totally disconnected from their peers and their instructor, they struggle to understand the actual purpose behind the assignments they are completing. Digitizing a syllabus is completely ineffective on its own. Unless you deliberately engineer social interactions into the design of a course, the technology stops acting as a bridge and instead becomes an impenetrable wall. To fix this, course designers have to engineer something called co-presence. It is the psychological illusion of being in the exact same physical space as other people, even when everyone is geographically scattered. You build this illusion first through manufactured intimacy. Designers create spaces to share personal stories and heavily emphasize personalized communication, like making sure instructors use a student's actual name and attach a face to their profile photo. Second, you construct immediacy. Without physical proximity, it is created strictly through time. An instructor replying rapidly to a discussion thread or hosting virtual office hours with a highly specific agenda gives students the feeling of real-time support. This chart maps these digital spaces. The y-axis splits interactions into formal and informal. The x-axis separates learner-instructor guidance from learner-learner collaboration. A student needs an informal virtual cafe to vent while relying on structured, formal collaborative projects to debate coursework with peers. If a digital learning space leans too heavily on one quadrant and ignores the rest, the human connection fractures and the course collapses. All four zones have to be active to sustain the community. Even with those spaces built, dropping a group of students into an empty digital discussion board without setting a climate or defining expectations is a recipe for total silence. Designers fix this disorientation using a tool known as a pedagogical wrapper. These are concise, highly explicit framing messages delivered right before an interaction even begins. A wrapper does exactly what its name implies. It wraps the assignment in context. It tells the student exactly why an upcoming interaction matters, what the ground rules for respect are, and precisely how this specific debate connects to the final goals of the course. By setting these guidelines early, the dynamic shifts. It establishes a shared responsibility for learning. The student knows exactly what is expected of them socially and academically, even before they hit the keyboard. This technique quietly removes the instructor from being the dominant sage on the stage. Instead, the teacher becomes an invisible background facilitator, nudging the conversation toward deep learning without taking it over. Effective online instruction relies heavily on this invisible scaffolding. The underlying architecture guides a learner's emotional and academic behavior well before they ever type their first word. This framework shows the result of intentional social design, transforming a passive reader into a multidimensional learner. First, it forces cognitive engagement through intellectual contributions, ensuring behavioral engagement via meaningful tasks. It then creates emotional ties, driving social engagement through the continuous exchange of ideas. When a learner hits all four of these dimensions simultaneously, they enter a powerful state of flow. To maintain that crucial momentum, courses require open, free-flow areas in the middle of the semester, where students can comfortably provide input, ask for resources, or suggest course structure changes. Because this framework replaces isolation with a shared social journey, ending the term can feel like a sudden disruption. An end-of-course debriefing provides a necessary space for learners to process that transition and reflect on their collective progress before the digital community dissolves. The deliberate architecture of human co-presence bridges the digital vacuum. By engineering these specific points of contact, designers transform technology into a functional social context for deep learning.